So do these little babies look familiar to you? This is actually the Colombe de Buren. So Buren is actually the name of the artist. Now, why don't I show you these columns right there. So those are Romanesque, Grecian columns, but these type of columns right here are kind of similar to these. These black marks over here are supposed to be the depressions in the column where the shadow hits. You guys get it, like the curves. So this was actually built like in the 1980s. This was originally a parking lot, but whoever was the boss didn't like it. So commissioned an artist to do this. And it's become so popular. There's fashion shows, movies. Emily in Paris has shot scenes here. In fact, that's what I'm going to be doing right now. There's actually a couple of places I'm going to show you guys that are from the scenes from Emily in Paris. I'm Bianca Valerio and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm here in Paris. I'm actually doing a little bit of a walking tour to show you some spots that you might recognize from Emily in Paris. La Belle Époque, oh oh. La Belle Époque, oh oh. La Belle Époque, La Belle Époque. And this over here you might recognize is the entrance to the marketing agency of Emily in Paris. But inside it's actually, I think, a furniture store. So they really just use the exterior, and then the interior, I believe they shot somewhere else, or for all you know is inside the studio. So right beside the entrance of this office is also a restaurant where scenes have been filmed. So if you recall, in the very first episode of Emily in Paris, she actually invited her co-workers out to lunch. And they said, no, we're busy, or they're not hungry. This is where, when she's coming out, she's going back to the office and she's walking by, and then she sees her co-workers are actually eating without her. And that made her really sad. So we find ourselves in another setting for Emily in Paris. It's this restaurant over here. So do you recall that scene where she had to make a restaurant reservation because, oh my God, that guy, that American guy, the guy who called Emily Chicago? So yeah, she had to make reservations at this restaurant, but unfortunately she got the dates wrong because in French and English they switch up the day and the month, and this is actually the restaurant, and it is just right by Palais Royal. If we're being actually really truthful and try to see like what are the things that are actually true about Emily in Paris, well, it really was hard to get a table right here because this restaurant right here used to be one of the most important, most illustrious restaurants before COVID. It was actually really hard to get a table and very, very expensive. We're talking nobility, dignitaries, celebrities, and all these other important people were known to actually dine here. Now, after COVID, which is fair for the rest of the world, not just this restaurant, the prices have actually been more affordable. And as to whether it's easier to book, I should certainly hope so. So they say that the quality is not as good, but come on, guys. Let's cut some slack for the rest of the world. We're just trying to rise up when we are back down by COVID. So, Grand Véfour by Palais Royal. So that alley that we just saw by Palais Royal, it actually looked like this before. And back in the day, banquets were held like this. Exquisite. So another scene from Emily in Paris, although we can't really say exactly where, is when she actually sat all by herself because none of her co-workers wanted to have a meal with her. She sat on one of these benches, and alas, she met her best friend Mindy. Yeah, so this is one of the benches right here. So we're gonna take a seat right about here right now. Over at another stop where you might Well, it's not too familiar right now from Emily in Paris because it's closed, but this is on her very first day, I think of the first episode, where she bought pain chocolat. So it was actually from here, minus the graffiti when it's open. And then, voila. So about this restaurant, it's actually Italian. It's Terra Nera. Now, although it's not the same French restaurant as Chef Gabriel, the name of the owner of this restaurant, or the chef, truly is Gabriel. You can actually see it in the sign. And apparently he's made a lot of money from having this restaurant to be used for the show. I can be sure. And unfortunately it's closed, but definitely when it's during the season, I'm sure everybody will want to try the Italian food right here. So that cafe right there, I'm showing a video from our tour guide right now from that scene where Camille, Mindy and Emily are actually seated right outside, and there are people watching and they're having their cafes, and I think somebody ordered like something and thought it was like a condom. Yeah, that happened right here. And now we're walking so close, and they're actually literally all nearby one another. And right over there at the back of that door is the door to where Emily lives. Oh wow. So that room up there, that's really where Emily and Mindy actually stayed. So this building is owned by one person, this whole building, which is quite exceptional, meaning to say the one who owns this building is very wealthy. Yes. So the top part of the is actually an Airbnb. You get that, guys? So if you actually want to rent this room where Emily and Mindy, or whoever, the cast of Emily in Paris, have stayed, have hung out, have slept in, or whatever, you can actually really rent it an off-season. Off-season meaning when they're not filming the show. So apparently the owner, when he finds out that they're going to be filming, he makes sure that the top floor is not rented, but when it is open, I'm sure you can check it out online and you can find out when that is. And do you remember the time when Emily celebrated her birthday? It was also in this courtyard where you had here your fountain, and then Camille actually goes upstairs to get some champagne and find Gabrielle's, what is it called? Frying pan. Iron pan, whatever, that pan with his initials. Oh my God. So sometimes it really helps when you're like talking to the locals. So our tour guide, there was like an old lady who was sitting down with her dog, God bless her. She left already. And she was just chatting with her. And she was saying that the locals, usually when there are film locations, the neighbors around, they don't like it because it causes a ruckus, it's noisy, and it causes a disturbance in the community. However, not in this area, because the locals actually don't mind coming back from their vacation a little bit earlier in the August just to entertain visitors. Like this shop over here, it's a photocopy shop, but in the movie, it was actually transformed into a flower shop. And now, if you guys recall that flower shop, it's where Emily wanted to buy flowers, but then the seller was just not having it. Was quite rude to her, but Cam came to her rescue, and that's how they first became friends. Now we are in the Luxembourg Gardens. Isn't she lovely? She truly is lovely. It truly is just like a world of its own, really. So in Emily of Paris, you see her jogging around the garden. So there's a couple of scenes that you will see that you'll know, that's the Luxembourg Gardens. Well, right nowadays, nowadays, or now, this is actually the Senate. The building itself is not open to the public, although as you can see, the gardens are, but only in very special occasions, so they will actually open the building itself. Now, in the past, this was originally the residence of Marie, of the Medici family. Now, the Medici family, they're from Florence, and they're like the bougie, bourgeois, like super rich. And then when she came here, she had married Henry the something right here. And because she was here in Paris and she wasn't home, she wanted to build something that was very reminiscent of her own home. That's why the architecture of this is a little bit, I think, similar to what her home actually looks like. But now, like I said, is the Senate. I am super preparing my camera for something that is so familiar. Ta-da! Here we go, and that's where Emily in Paris sat in one of those chairs right there with Luke. So I am here in Galerie Vivienne, and I know this is not a scene from Emily in Paris, but Emily in Paris is all about fashion. And if we know fashion, we know our shopping malls. Now, they say that the shopping mall really started from the galerie. So a gallery actually means in French like, or sort of to imply like an underground passage, and it connects from one part of the street to another street. That's why it's a long, like narrow hallway. Now in that hallway, you're going to find a lot of stores, restaurants, cafes, and whatnot. Now, back in the day, apart from it like having all these shops, there were no toilets. A lot of people couldn't afford to have toilets in their homes. So there were travelers, there were just locals or whatnot who would actually come here in order to have a bath. So you could actually rent a bathtub for 1 hour. Isn't that crazy? You could rent a bathtub for 1 hour. You could do that, freshen up. Kind of like in a lot of places in the world, when it's winter time, they actually build underground passageways on the metro to shield people from the warm. And they did that exactly. They built these galleries exactly for that reason as well. So there were so many things that you could do inside a galerie that were practical, that were for leisure, that were for hygiene, and so many more. And so they say that the galerie is how the shopping mall was born. Okay, since Paris is the city of love, they say a way the woman's heart is with flowers and chocolate. And so we have actually stopped by Les Chocolat, and it is actually owned by chef Alain Ducasse. So there's like people coming in right now. It's basically designer chocolate, and he actually has the most stars in the Michelin Guide. Isn't that crazy? Can I try one? Yeah, so I'm gonna try one right now. We actually bought like, what we were, yes.
It's a ganache.
This is a chocolate ganache.
Lime or raspberry?
Oh, lime.
Lime.
It's either lime or raspberry. The way that my heart is with lime or lemon.
Want to try? What is it? It's a biscuit.
It's not too sweet, so it's actually nice that it's dark chocolate, so there's a little bit of bitterness, and then of course sweetness from the chocolate, the ganache, and then it's like this tangy burst of citrusness from the lime. It's sour, but like it has a little It's so funny how we're all so quiet inside the store. I don't know why. It's good. Crunchy. Just, there are no words. No words. Crunchy, creamy, And again, I think the best part is it's not very sweet. That's the best part. Good morning from Paris, and this structure over here is probably very familiar to you, not only because she's a very gorgeous landmark here in Paris, but maybe you also recognize her from Emily in Paris, but for whatever reason, it's because you see these spectacular views of Paris from the front and from the top, and she is Sacré-Cœur. Sacré-Cœur in English is a Sacred Heart, so for Catholics it's the Sacred Heart of Jesus Cathedral, and for considering it's a cathedral, you would think it's hundreds and hundreds and centuries old, but it's actually only 135 years old. That was built after the First World War. Now, do you see this? This pink facade, La Maison Rose. So in Emily in Paris, there was actually a table like right here, and she was sitting down with Mindy, and this is actually located in Montmartre. It's a really, really famous cafe. Unfortunately, it's closed today, but yeah, she's right on the corner. Absolutely lovely and quaint. Okay, so do you recall that scene in Emily in Paris where they were trying to figure out where to put that mattress, and Emily had just been fired, and that's why they were having like a meal in that pink cafe? Well, and then it was like midnight and they were having like a champagne bottle, drinking their sorrows away because she thought she was going back to America. This is that street at the end of that day at night where they filmed their last Instagram story, and it was actually right here. This is why it's good to hit it early. Do you see that street? Do you see those people right in the back? They are making their way. I'm pretty sure it's not because they want to see where the bed was situated, but it's simply because everybody comes to Montmartre to see the sights. Okay, so before the floods are coming in, this right here, that's a statue or a bust of a very famous French singer who dated the French president or was in love with the French president. That's Dalida. So this is Place Dalida. But that is actually where the mattress in Emily in Paris was placed, right underneath this tree. This is where Emily had actually shared the space with Camille, right? And then they had a little Instagram moment, and then Gabrielle saw it, and he was like, oh my goodness, sharing the bed with the enemy, or BFF in this case. Well, right there. Tell me the ways you love me, or I love you. In fact, this is a wall of how many languages?
More than 300.
More than 300 languages of I love you in your own language. I've been trying to look for mahal kita for the past 2 minutes. Can't seem to find it, but it doesn't matter because you can learn a new way of saying I love you just by looking at this wall. This is another scene from Emily in Paris where she was with Gabrielle, and they were actually looking for a venue as to where would be a perfect setting to launch that campaign about love. And it was also, they filmed a scene here. And just like magic, one of the most iconic landmarks in the world, the Eiffel Tower. I mean, what would it be of a vlog here in Paris without showing this beautiful lady over here? It's such a pleasure taking you around the world with me, and this time to France. I'm Bianca Valerio. Until next time, au revoir.